I had just finished performing the most difficult opera song in my repertoire. Then, it was my friend Portia's turn. To my horror, she started singing a pop song. Portia had the stronger performance. However, Ivy has technical skills. You both pass. Wait, I must have heard you wrong. You're saying that Portia, with her wretched little pop song, is the better singer? Portia's performance was superior to yours.
I'm standing right here, Ivy.
As if you and I could ever be in the same league. It's like comparing the Mona Lisa to graffiti. Okay, I've got news for you, Miss Diva. We were never friends. I followed you around, pretending, so I could sit in on your music lessons. Girls, that's enough. I never said that Portia was the stronger singer. She's the stronger performer. You perform like a machine, without a shred of feeling, Ivy. That's your weakness. Pounding on our front door woke me up the next morning. I opened the door to find a group of people standing there impatient. They brushed past me and began sticking little tags on our belongings. I looked past them and saw my little sister Lavender on the phone in the kitchen. Dad just hung up on me. Dad was on the phone? Did you tell him that weird people are in our house? He says he owes them money, but we're rich. He called from the airport. He says we're going to need to take care of ourselves for a little while. We're alone. I shook off my panic and grabbed her by the shoulders. Go grab your suitcase and pack it up as if we're going on vacation. If he's leaving, we're leaving. In truth, I had no idea where we were going. I quietly grabbed a couch cushion and crept up to the attic. Alone, I buried my face into the soon-to-be repossessed cushion and screamed. A hand on my shoulder made me scream again, this time in fear. I launched the cushion at the owner of the hand that touched my shoulder. It passed the man in the face. Who are you?
Kingsley, of Kingsloan and Mercenile. Your father racked up quite the debt.
Are you expecting a minor to cough up that kind of cash?
I've heard that you're talented. How would you feel about continuing to live in this house?
What's the catch?
I expect you to pay your family's debt once you become a pop star.
The odds of becoming a pop star are about as good as getting struck by lightning.
That's a bet I'm willing to make. If you fail to pan out, there's always your sister.
The idea of Lavender being burdened with our family's debt made my blood boil. You have a deal on one condition. You leave Lavender out of this.
Naturally, as long as you're a viable option.
Kingsley told me to think about it, but when he snapped his fingers and made all the strange people put our stuff back and leave our home, it wasn't like I had a choice. Kingsloan's and Mercantile was a strange place full of junk people pawned off over the years. Everything from suits of armor to taxidermy lions. Super creepy. I signed the contract in a hurry, only too happy to leave. Kingsley recapped the terms of the contract as he was walking me out, as if he wanted to be very sure I understood what I'd just done. But then I saw movement behind one of the suits of armor.
Quit lurking around my shop if you expect to do business with me.
A guy around my age stepped out of the shadows, and I glared at him. He smiled in response, almost apologetic. I was glad I wouldn't see him again. Kingsley told the creep to wait for him in his office, and once he was gone, gave me a stipend that was enough to buy food and necessities for the next month. I tried not to think about just how much was riding on me being successful here now.
Well, if it isn't Miss Mona Lisa.
The woman gave me a smile so fake, I was surprised her plastic face didn't shatter. She walked out on the stage and gave us all that same unfriendly smile.
There's no better welcome than a surprise talent showcase. Impress me or walk. Half of you will be cut by the end of the day.
The students collectively gasped and looked at each other.
To make it even more exciting, you'll perform in pairs, and you'll find out what you're singing when you're called up on the stage. I bet the people standing together have a higher likelihood of getting paired up.
I turned and saw the lurker, of all people. I moved to the opposite side of the room to get away from him.
Mona Lisa, I've got just the partner for you.
Miss Mavis dragged me over to a guy who looked like he belonged on a farm in Kansas. Honest to God, he was wearing overalls and work boots, splattered with what I hoped was mud.
Did I mention how we're going to judge this competition? Let's call it peer review. You've got to impress both the teachers and your fellow students. Good luck!
Farm Boy and me were called up next and given the ever tacky button on the Ritz to perform. The moment Farm Boy opened his mouth and began to sing, I understood why his parents hurried him onto a bus to the big city. It was to keep him from killing all their farm animals with his terrible singing. Tone Deaf didn't even begin to describe what sounds he was making. If whales were land animals, we'd be crushed by the stampede he'd be calling to the auditorium. He looked over at me and our eyes locked. At that moment, it dawned on me that I'd be homeless soon. He didn't break eye contact, and in desperation, I brought the mic to my lips. As I sang along with him, something miraculous happened. His voice matched mine and stayed on key, and he sounded amazing. When the backtrack faded, the entire auditorium erupted in applause. As soon as we got off stage, I ran out to the parking lot, but just as I felt the sting of tears, the lurker from the loan shop materialized. I willed my eyes to dry up and glared at him.
I'm Oliver, and I pawned priceless family jewels at Kingsley's.
Why are you telling me this?
So we're even.
He had the the audacity to wink at me, and if he weren't ridiculously attractive, it wouldn't have worked. When we walked back into the auditorium, Oliver got paired with Portia. They looked completely ridiculous together, probably as ridiculous as I looked with the country bumpkin. Each day, Oliver and me met up for lunch, and every evening, Oliver walked me home. Since we were both in on each other's shared secrets, me and Oliver were closer to each other than we were to our teammates. For the overalls to go, Caleb, music is about how we sound. The novelty of you looking like a scarecrow is wearing off. Our peer scores were dangerously low last time. How am I supposed to dress? And where do I get money to buy new clothes? I reached into my wallet and pulled out a few hundred from Kingsley's latest stipend. I shoved the cash into the front pocket of Caleb's horrible overalls. Choose a guy, any guy from school. Emulate him. It'll be an incredible improvement. The girls at school finally noticed Caleb, and it made me angry for some reason. He'd always been the same Caleb, just covered in denim and flannel. But it was also encouraging. Caleb would be guaranteed strong support from the female half of our school, and that was good news for my future. With the final showcase of the semester approaching, I had to spend long nights and weekends practicing at school. I felt bad about leaving Lavender alone so much. Then, I got a call from Lavender's school letting me know that my little sister had collapsed. When we arrived, the doctor told us that my sister was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Why didn't you tell me things were so hard for you, Lavender? How could I? I know that if you can't pay off Father's debt, we'll be homeless. It's not like we have money or any other options.
Miss Lavender, while Ivy is busy with school, why don't you stay with my grandmother? She's old and I don't visit her nearly enough. I'm sure she'd love to have you.
I looked up and saw Portia standing outside of the hospital room. When I got to school the next day, Oliver pulled me aside.
Let's skip today.
We can't.
What you can't do is walk in there without a plan. Whoever has it out for you, use the school bulletin board.
I scrolled through the post that painted a picture of my current situation in the most unflattering colors possible. It was the meanest thing Portia could have done to me. I felt my eyes burning and blinked away tears.
I wish you'd let your guard down around me. Why won't you let me see you cry?
I don't cry in front of people. It's nothing personal. I refreshed the bulletin board to see if anyone had commented on the post. When the page reloaded, there was a new post with an embedded video. I clicked it, thinking that it was a recording of something damning, but it was just a video of Portia and Oliver's group during dress rehearsal. Students weren't allowed to share stuff like this, and Portia would be in serious hot water once Miss Mavis saw it.
Wait, was that me?
I'm sure your group will just get a slap on the wrist.
This video is public, and it's got my face in it.
What's wrong with that?
Yes, understood.
What's wrong, Oliver?
I'm being summoned back home. The family has decided to lock me up for a few years until the scandal blows over, and if I don't comply, I'll be disinherited.
And back home is where, exactly?
England. Come with me, Ivy. There's nothing for you here.
What about Lavender?
She's not your kid. Maybe if you leave, it'll force your dad to take some responsibility.
I can't believe you'd suggest something like that.
At least I'm honest, Ivy. When was the last time you were honest with yourself? You know you want to come with me. You hate pop music and performing with losers. You miss opera and high society and being with our kind of people.
I was so stunned that I literally had nothing to say in reply.
Think about it and decide how you're gonna live, Ivy. Call me when you're ready to step into our future.
I was walking home feeling hurt and lost when Caleb found me. As soon as those eyes of his locked with mine, I threw my arms around him, and for the first time in years, I cried in front of someone. And I told him everything that happened, knowing that he'd listen. And he did. He listened to everything and told me that everything was definitely going to be okay. And I believed him. Impossible as it was, I knew if the farm boy said it, it had to be true.
I'm glad I got to know you.
I have no idea why, but thanks.
You really don't know.
Know what?
No matter what happens, know that I always think of you as a friend, even if we're far apart.
I'm not leaving, so quit with the goodbyes already.
I know, but it seemed like a good time to say it anyway. It's good to get stuff like that out in the open when it's not awkward.
It was awkward, but it was pretty cute that he didn't realize it, so I didn't say anything. The next morning, I got a call from Kingsley telling me that I needed to see him. When I walked into the office, 2 passports and a torn-up contract were on his desk.
Congratulations, Ivy. Your debt has been canceled. There are 2 passports, one for you and one for Lavender. I understand that you're headed to England. I've booked a plane that leaves this evening.
As I stared at my contract on the desk, a strange sense of knowing hit me. How he managed it, I didn't know. But one thing I knew for sure, the farm boy did this. He signed a contract with you, didn't he?
You're the only reason he stayed at the school.
Me? What are you talking about?
He said his plan was to obey his parents and accept the scholarship, but then performed so poorly that he got sent back home. Then he met you.
I took the torn pieces of my contract and carefully placed them back together on the desk. I'm going to pay back that debt, and you're not a bad guy. You should have a respectable business. Why don't you start a record label or something?
A record label requires top talent.
And there's plenty of it. Lots of amazingly talented people at school who will never get their big break since they don't don't look the part, I'd sign with you in a heartbeat. I named off students I knew didn't have a snowball's chance in hell of making it in the industry. And when the time came, difficult as it was, I even mentioned Portia. Kingsley agreed to sign a new contract with me, and once it was signed, I went looking for Caleb. I found him sitting alone in our classroom at the school. He stood when I entered the room and tried to act all nonchalant until he looked into my eyes. What did you do? I should be asking you that very same thing. I never really appreciated how tall Caleb was until I tried to kiss him. I had to stand up on my tippy toes to reach his mouth. Thankfully, he caught my drift and helped me out, bridging the distance so I could kiss him properly. What about Oliver? What about him? He made his choice, and so have I. I choose you, farm boy, if you'll have me. What about Kingsley's contract? Oh, that's all worked out too. I'll tell you about that later. Most of the students I named off ended up signing with Kingsley's label, Royal Records. And a lot of diverse voices got their start, thanks to him being willing to give them a chance when others wouldn't. I paid off my debt with interest once I debuted and became a star. Kingsley is basically family at this point, and family sticks together. Speaking of family, my father came back into my life and tried to get me to sign with another label. I refused and told him to hit the road. Portia signed with Royal Records, and while we won't ever be besties again, I'm happy to see her successful. Ironically, Portia is now technically some sort of princess or something now that she's married Oliver, but she hasn't rubbed it in once. Me and Caleb are planning to get married next fall after he retires from music. If somebody would have told me that I'd be a pop singer married to a farmer someday, I would have called them a liar. But I'm actually really happy with how my life turned out. What do we do now? There's so many of them.
Don't move. Somebody will notice we're gone eventually.
Eventually?
Yeah, probably.